Thank you for joining Associated Luxury Hotels International for this episode of Beyond the Meeting Room. Beyond the Meeting Room is hosted by ALHI's President and CEO, Michael Dominguez. Each episode, ALHI shares candid conversations on a variety of topics to enhance your personal and professional life. This podcast episode is sponsored by Caribe Royale Orlando. Color outside the lines and discover a new standard at Caribe Royale Orlando. Break the mold on traditional Orlando meetings and conventions. At Caribe Royale Orlando, innovation is only the beginning. With an incomparable resort experience, exceptional indoor and outdoor venues, and luxurious all-suite accommodations. Designed for the disruptors and rule benders among us, Caribe Royale Orlando is a groundbreaking AAA 4-diamond destination where inspiration reigns and a new standard is set. In today's episode, we are joined by Carla Hall, a renowned chef and author. With previous appearances on Top Chef and Top Chef All-Stars, Carla shares her philosophy to always cook with love. Believing that food connects us all and striving to communicate this through her work, she discusses her career, how to embrace feedback and change in all areas of life, and how to build a supportive culture with those around you. Listen in for an engaging and delicious conversation.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond the Meeting Room. And I cannot tell you, so for everybody, we are here at our Omni Showroom property at a day called Inspire, where Leading Authorities brings this great talent like you to the stage to be able to really educate us and mostly inspire us and help us do our job just a little bit better. So thank you for taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I just want to say I love this hotel because I do live here in D.C., so it's really nice to be here again.
So how long have you lived in D.C.?
I went to Howard in 82 to 86. I left. I came back in 91. I've been here since 91.
Wow.
I mean, and I still say I'm from Nashville because
because you are. And Nashville, you talk about Nashville, that is one, especially on our side of the industry, it has exploded.
Yeah.
I don't know how often you get back, but it's not the Nashville of
it is,
probably you grew up in.
Dude, it isn't. It isn't. I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with the development because you go back and you're like, oh my gosh, where are all the people? Where are the neighborhoods that I knew and loved? But we still have property there, so I still go back home. Wow. And I'm redoing the house that I grew up in now in Nashville. That's very close to downtown, and so. Yeah, it's growing, and it's all the food, and it's the music, and I feel like Nashville is this town, and I know you as a luxury hotels, even the number of luxury hotels that have grown in Nashville.
Exactly.
But I don't think people think about Nashville just being a music town. It's not just country music. So many people record there, like second tier. It's a second-tier music city. Yeah. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and you said something. I think you're known for food.
Yeah.
And I think what's really interesting is I've been in the business now, kind of the same time frame. It was 82 to 86 was kind of where I was gearing up in this business. Mm-hmm. Where food is looked at today as part of our culture and, to me, a fabric of our society.
Yeah.
Is so different than it was. And over the last 15, 20 years, I couldn't be more excited. And I started on the food and beverage side, not cooking.
Okay, yeah.
But I've always said, you guys are the rock stars of our industry. And it always excited me to learn about food. Mm-hmm. And I used to run a restaurant with Hyatt Hotels way back in the day. That's kind of where I started. And
okay.
I'm the assistant manager there. But in the evenings, I'd close the restaurant and the chefs were still going. And I'd go put on an apron, and I used to joke, probably broke a lot of rules because I'm in the back wanting to learn.
Yeah.
Like teach me how you're doing that. And I just find such admiration because I think when I look at the food and beverage scene, there's an artistry to it. But the greatest foods I've seen are inspired, which really fits why we're here today. But they're inspired. It's not the technique that makes them wonderful. Right. It's the inspiration. You talk about love of food and love. Can you talk a little more to that and what that is?
Yeah, I mean, just you talking about how food has changed over the years, and I think it's more about how we relate as culture, how we see ourselves, like what does our DNA look like on a plate? I mean, that's
I like
more
that.
like
yeah.
now. Whereas before it was very black and white. I mean, it was more like, let's look at the French restaurant, let's look at the French culture. All of our fine dining was based on another culture. Even the way the kitchen runs was based on another culture. And so I went to culinary school at 30. I can't believe it's been 30 years since I went to culinary school. And then I had a lunch delivery service at 25. So I did that for 5 years. And I think about how when I went to culinary school, I didn't want to be known for my Southern roots. I didn't. And I love that food. But then once I went to culinary school, I'm like, oh, I have to do this to be successful. I can't do that other stuff. And I think today, the same way that I've grown personally and cooking with love and finding myself through food and finding a voice, it has changed so much. Top Chef absolutely helped me do that.
Right.
But it's changed so much, and I think now people are more receptive to looking at their culture through food, and it's not just the three big ones like Italian, Greek, French, right?
Yeah, it's funny, and it's the little memories that we connect. I was just at one of our other hotels yesterday for another event, and they had very much a Mexican theme in their food, and to see a chicken mole brought me back to my grandmother.
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain to them, they go, how is it? I go, not as good as grandma's. Yeah, and it's one of the, but I know it had nothing to do with the food. It had everything to do with the memories and
100%.
how it made me feel. And I think that's what you're talking about. There's this connection with food today that takes me back in time. It brings back some of those memories and even some of the best food. I don't know if this has ever happened to you. Like, I've gone to Napa and we were having this. No, actually, wasn't Napa. I was at the Masters one year.
Okay.
Got invited by a client, and I remember it was a wine that was given to us, was being served by one of the wineries in Napa. We go to Napa later, and I had the wine. It wasn't as good, and it wasn't that the wine was different. The moment was different.
The moment. That's why when we go on vacation and all the food is really good, one, we're relaxed. With another place, we're more receptive to the experience. And then when we get back into our regular life, something else takes over. We're not as receptive, I think, and loose and wanting to have that vacation food, you know what I mean? Because you're in work mode. I mean, it is a mindset. But also, I think a lot of times when we have these emotional ties to food, we sometimes are hoping that someone else can bring that to us, but they can't. Because when you're remembering your grandmother, it may be some little thing that she did. I mean, how many different ways can you make mole, right? Everybody it's like marsala, or it's like curry. Everybody puts their own little spin on it.
Right.
And your body, your DNA, your food memories that's in your body is looking for that thing. Right? And so you can only have a new experience with mole. You get right from somebody else.
That's so true.
Right?
Yeah. That's and it's everything, because I still have these memories of my grandmother when she would make big pots of menudo and be making the phone calls because everybody had to go pick up their share of the menudo that she had made. And it's recently I'm visiting my son and more importantly my granddaughter of 2.5 years.
Of course it is.
They get a little jealous. It's like, it's not about you anymore. Here you go. But, we're visiting the grandchild, and I always go pick up barbacoa tacos on Sunday. And I do that because that was a memory it's what my dad, and I told my wife, I've become my dad.
Yeah, yes.
When we visit mom and dad today, Dad goes, we having barbacoa? Yes, we're having barbacoa.
Yes.
And he goes and picks it up. By the time we're up, we've got the nourishments for the day. And there was a moment that I've shared once that it was just me and my dad. I forgot where my mom was. And we're at home. We pick up barbacoa. We ate for 3 hours.
Wow.
Just little pieces of it, but it was the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody telling us to quit eating.
Okay, that part. Yeah, I mean, I just love it. And I think about my grandmother, and I didn't cook when I was growing up. People think, oh, you must have been cooking with your mom, with your grandma. No, I wasn't. I didn't really cook until I was in college, but I ate. I ate a lot. And so now when I cook, my memory, going to culinary school, it made me like a Sherlock Holmes or a super sleuth of flavor. So I am able to recreate a food memory with techniques that I learned at school. So a lot of times when I tell people, they're like, oh, I need a recipe. Like, we can't find grandma's recipe. And I'm like, you have to let your memories take over, let like your emotions take over. So when you're making something, have a base recipe. When you're making something, you're recalling how you felt about it. That is the closest you're going to get to that dish before you have a recipe. Because if you have a recipe, you're only intellectually engaged. But when you have the emotions, like how did it make you feel? What did it feel like in your mouth? What did it smell like? You will get much closer.
Do you find that is such a metaphor for life?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Because people are missing that. I think what you just said is, and that's where my head was going when you're talking, is we're missing those moments in life.
Yeah.
And how are we getting into the emotional side of it versus checking the box? And, you know, we talk about in our business and what we're doing even here today, we talk about, you know, meeting architecture and bringing people together. How do you run a meeting? Mm-hmm. One of the things I keep delivering to the meeting planning audience recently is we're forgetting why we're meeting. It's the humanity. It's us connecting as human beings. And what are we doing to drive that? And I think food is just such a big part of that, even in this experience.
I mean, 100%. I also think that when you are emotionally involved, it's no longer about, is it going to be right or wrong?
Right.
Will it make me feel good? Can I make somebody else feel good? You know, and you remember the humanity of it. And I think a lot of times the reason people want a recipe because they don't want to say they got it wrong.
Exactly.
They think there's going to be a report card at the end. Like, y'all, there's no report card at the end. Nobody's going to give you a report card. Did you like it or did you not? I mean, and I think when I'm judging on the baking championships, the food that we like the most is it's not necessarily perfect, but we can taste the emotion in it. I can taste how somebody has put their whole heart in there versus somebody who is technically perfect.
Right.
Very efficient, proficient, and all of that, but it's devoid of emotion. And you can taste it or the lack thereof.
I see, and I take that into even other parts of our industry and life. That it may have been a good meeting, but because when we plan our meetings with ALHI, one of the things we talk about, I was a big fan of Jimmy Valvano's speech that he gave when he started the V Foundation. Mm-hmm. But he always said, if there's 3 things you got to do every day to have a good day, you need to spend some time in thought, you need to spend some time in laughter, and he says, and you need to move your emotions to tears. And he goes, if you do that, that's a hell of a day.
Yeah.
That has always been my filter when I plan a meeting.
Yeah.
How do we move you intellectually? How do we make sure we don't take ourselves too seriously? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, how do we move the emotions?
Yeah.
Because that's what you'll remember to the meeting. And I think that's what great food experiences have always done for me.
That's it. That's exactly it. But yes. Just yes. I mean, it's just yes.
I have to ask you a question. Why culinary school? You said you really weren't cooking earlier. What drove you to that?
No, I was in Paris modeling. And then I was hanging out at this woman's house, Elaine Evans. She was living in Paris. She was from Memphis, Tennessee, and the models would get together there, and they were cooking. And I remember them going on and saying, "Oh, my mother makes macaroni and cheese like this. Well, my mother makes it like this." I'm like, I have this dish at least once a week. I have no idea how it's made, and I don't like not knowing. So I started going. I went to the American bookstore. Started buying cookbooks. There was no macaroni and cheese, by the way. But I started buying cookbooks, and cooking became an act of gratitude. Right. That because I was living on people's couches, and so I would go to the store. I love shopping, like in the grocery stores, and I would shop. I would come back. I would make a soup or bread or something like that, like a quick bread, and I would give it to the people who would allow me to sleep on their couches, and I just kept doing it. And then that ended up becoming a lunch delivery service that I did for 5 years, and then I went to culinary school. So I worked every single day for 5 years before I went to culinary school.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's fascinating that's kind of what drove you, because I was like, and then you're saying curiosity is even a part of it. That is amazing. So, which is harder, being judged as a chef or modeling?
Both are equally hard for different reasons. You know, it's so funny that you talk about that because both are very subjective.
Right.
They're very subjective.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, and if somebody sees you coming, if you're not if they have a vision in their head about what good fashion is or who should be in their clothes, there's that. And then if you, as a diner, you go into a restaurant and you have a vision in your head, what you feel is good, and it doesn't match up, like if your clothes or this model doesn't match up to the vision of the designer, if you as a diner, your vision of what you think is good doesn't match up to the chef, you feel like it's not good. And what I really try to tell people is it's not that it's not good, you didn't like it.
Right.
That's very different. So if it was technically correct, it's very subjective. You just didn't like it. So stop saying it was nasty. I mean, I hate when people say, oh, it's just, okay, hate's a strong word, but it's true. Oh, that was nasty. It was terrible. No, it wasn't. I mean, if you look at it like, oh, it was made well, it was cooked perfectly, it was all of these things, you just didn't like it.
Exactly.
And you have to use your words. I've been at dinner parties. Okay, maybe not a dinner party, it's intimate, but like at a dinner.
Right.
And I've had somebody at the table, oh, I don't like this, it's nasty. I looked over this man, true story. I said, you are at least 60. You can use your words. Why don't you like it? Mm-hmm. Like, you have to articulate why you don't like something. You can't just say, I don't like it.
Exactly.
You know?
And you know what's really funny? We're in the hotel business. You talk about being subjective.
Oh.
On a stay, on design, because you're trying to design a room that you're going to have somebody say, I really don't like this.
Yes.
I don't like this piece. And it's like, but it doesn't mean the design's bad.
Exactly.
It just means you didn't like it.
Exactly. Yeah. And you just have to use your words. And I think, and this is what I really try to get young people to say, and even when I give somebody a critique or something, if I tell you I like something, I'm going to tell you exactly why I like it.
Right.
I'm going to go through the things.
Right.
You know, if it be it food, a trip, a hotel stay, why I like it. If I don't like it, it's probably because it is technically flawed.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And that's not as subjective. That is very objective.
Yes.
I think there's a great leadership lesson in there personally, because we'll tell people good job, but not telling them why we're telling them good job.
Dude. Oh my God. Exactly. But also, people want, I want more constructive criticism.
Yeah.
I want you to say, if you don't give me the benefit, and I'm not talking about the end of the year reviews, because that's too late. Don't list up a whole bunch of things and then give this to me late. I want to know why you didn't think I did a good job here,
right,
so that I can correct it. And so for the next time, it's a little more efficient,
right,
I think, to help me think about the next time that I'm in that situation, that I can tweak and grow, and then so that at the end of the year, I'm giving you more of what you want, and I've also fed my soul, and I feel like I'm doing a great job because I'm making headway just for me personally.
I love that. You know, it's funny because you'll probably appreciate this. We're a small business, and we can do it the way we want to, and I've worked with larger organizations. We've completely revamped our entire performance review and what that looks like. And our performance review now, and we're asking this to be done quarterly, and then at the end of the year, there are 3 simple questions that we're asking our employees to answer. What do you think you're doing really well? What do you think you need to improve in? And most importantly, how can we help? That's all we're asking, and now it becomes a conversation in the review instead of the 18 boxes I have to check to say that NA doesn't apply, those type of things. We just got rid of it and say, can we make it conversational, and can we ask the question, so one, it puts them in thought, and also to see if there's a disconnect. Because if you're telling me this is what you think you're doing well, and I'm like, oh, I don't see that.
Yeah.
We know what we should be talking about, versus it being so, to your point, all over the board earlier. But we made that change, and it's always frustrated me. And I understand in bigger corporations, you got to have some type of benchmark. I just don't. I think we get lazy.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to say, how do I reinvent this to make it purposeful for the people and valuable for the people I'm talking to, so I can help fill I love the way you say that, to help feed your soul.
Yeah.
You know, how do I make sure I'm feeding their soul as much as possible?
Because I think I truly believe that you can't mess up in this world.
Yeah.
In this lifetime, I cannot mess up, because what is my path? I'm supposed to have all the highs, all the lows to get to my path. I am supposed to have, I think that they're the messengers of our lessons.
Yes.
And they're the messengers of our blessings. And I've had some really tough bosses. And in hindsight, they were the messengers of my lessons, because if you leave too soon, if you get defensive, if you don't accept why they are in your life and crossing your path, you cannot grow. You know, and I don't care. I mean, in the moment, I'm emotional about it. But then when you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, if I didn't have that, then I wouldn't be here. And if I wasn't here, then I can't go there.
I love that. You know, it's interesting. I have a good friend, and he's a deacon and a devout Christian. And I remember one of these things, we were having a talk, and it has stuck with me over all these years. And it was 20 years ago he told me this. Mm-hmm. But one of his pastors at his church was telling him Jesus could have accomplished everything he needed to do in his mission without anybody except Judas. Judas was necessary to his mission. And the message he was trying to deliver is we need to learn to appreciate our Judases in our lives.
Yes.
That they're put in our path for a reason. Those challenges are put
exactly.
in the path. And he was relating it not to a person, it's to situations. And those, to your point, the things that are going to make us who we are, you have to go through. I love that concept.
Yeah, but I think also, you know, you have these lessons. Would you get hung up on a lesson that you failed in second grade? No, you would move on. Like, that was so, 20 years ago. I mean, but right, so now, and that's how I look, that's how I'm able to take on a lot of criticism. I mean, Top Chef also helped me.
Right.
Top Chef was about being comfortable with the uncomfortable,
right.
and making something and standing up there in front of judges, and they're just going to tell you what they liked, what they didn't like. But in that moment, I realized if I'm on the top or the bottom, I get feedback.
Right.
When you're in the middle, you get nothing.
Ooh.
Getting nothing is a waste of time.
In other words, if I'm average, because you're only at the bottom because you took risks.
Right, exactly. Oh my God. Come on, it's nothing but a word. It is nothing but a word. Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
I really do love that. And I don't think enough people have that kind of perspective. Now, you said getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. How much did you have to practice for that? I mean, as far as experience it.
Yeah, I did. I had to do it a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, what people don't realize, I was 44 when I did Top Chef.
Right.
I was 44. A lot of people thought I was younger. I was 44. I kept putting myself into situations that were hard and uncomfortable. You know, even making a new dish, doing a cookbook. I mean, going on a show that you don't know what the heck you're doing. Even on the Chew, it took me 3 years to get it. 3 years. I was uncomfortable for 3 years. I was like, oh my God, please tell me if I'm supposed to leave this job, please just let them fire me right now today. I can't tell you, it was hard. But without just breathing through it, without having a friend saying, girl, you have a little more to go. I know it's hard. You know, it's like running a marathon, and it's 26.2 miles. And you've run 26 miles, and a lot of people will quit before the point 2.
Right.
If you can make it toward the point 2 to the other side, when you're like,
and I mentioned that because I think as leaders, people don't understand it takes being uncomfortable to learn how to be uncomfortable. And the more you're uncomfortable, and this is going to sound silly, the less uncomfortable I'm going to be.
well, 100%.
Yeah, long term, it's like, I know I mess up. I laugh at myself faster than anybody else.
Exactly. It's not I don't mind messing up. I was hosting the James Beard Awards. It's about 1,500 people. I'm hosting. And I had these shoes on. I'm doing this high five. I put it on social media. This is how much I didn't care about it. And when I tell you I fell, I mean, I was like literally like Superman. I'm like, not a piece of me was on the ground. Nothing. My shoes popped off. And then I remember thinking, I was so present. I remember thinking, uh-oh, I'm about to fall. How do I want to fall? Engage the core, make it big. I mean, I literally had all those thoughts. It's kind of like when you have a baseball player and they see the ball, the fastball coming really slowly at them. So I fell, I spun my legs, I crawled, and somebody was trying to help me. I'm like, no. And then I got up, the audience is still like, what the heck just happened? And then I'm like, y'all, this means it's going to be a great show. But they're still like, wait, what? And then I ran downstage, and I'm like, y'all know that shit was funny. I mean, right? They got to laugh. It was a release. And then we moved on. But most people would be so embarrassed. But I'm like, but I think as you get older, you get to the point where, you know, we're not perfect. We're not meant to be perfect.
Right.
Perfection does not exist.
Right.
You have to participate in life. And by participating, it means you will have highs, you will have lows, and you'll get to the other side of whatever you think that hard thing is.
Yeah, I think that is something we all start to take ourselves too seriously. I'm glad, and I always tell people, I got over that a long time ago, and I think it's because I have 2 daughters and a wife, and they made me get over that really quick. It's made me a better man. It's made me a better husband.
Yeah.
It's made me a better everything. But I do think that is we take ourselves so seriously. There's a quote by Ryan Reynolds that he actually talked about when he did National Lampoon Van Wilder. Mm-hmm. Of all things, you wouldn't think this would be inspirational for him. He said one of the biggest things that has helped him through life was a quote in Van Wilder where he said, "Don't take yourself don't take life too seriously. None of us make it out alive." I love the quote.
Yes.
It is stuck with me ever since I read that.
Yeah.
That he says he drives it, because what a great message. That, guys, we're all going to end up in the same place.
Exactly.
So let's enjoy this ride. Let's learn. Let's grow. You talked about criticism and about getting it. I always have this conversation with our team. If you've learned a skill, a craft, cooking, if you played sports, you learned an instrument, you've always had a coach or an instructor, you went to culinary school, you had somebody instructing you, and sometimes in a very hard way, to make you better on the things that you're missing. I find it interesting, as soon as we get into a work environment, I can't give you that same type of feedback without you being up in a tree. But if you were trying to learn a skill, you'd understand that the feedback is to make you better at your skill.
Right. Exactly.
I don't know how to get over that or how to help people get over that. And it's an interesting, because I think it has to do with trust.
Yeah.
So I think as leaders, we have to work harder on that. But I don't know if you have any advice for people on that. But does that make sense at all?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And I'm going to tell you what came up for me when you're saying that. In the kitchen, sports is not about your income. It's not about survival. It's not about money. When people have worked to get that job, I think the paradigm is that this is my livelihood. Right? I mean, working in the kitchen, it's a blue-collar job. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you know, you walk in knowing that may be the job.
Right.
Right? For whatever reason, I think in business, I think people, it starts in college. Especially, you already have that job because you've been preparing for it.
Right.
You've gone to college. You have your sights on this thing. You want to work for a big corporation, blah, 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 blah. And so when you get it, you're like, oh, I've made it. But you haven't made it. You feel like it's a rejection because you think you've made it. No, you just got on the path. I literally just put you here, your game pieces at the start. you got to make it to the, what?
You have 26.2 miles to go. Back to your old analogy.
Dude, exactly. You're at the starting line. The gun hadn't even gone off. And so I think that people take it so personally because they think that they have made it. And here's another place, I think, in the food world, or when somebody has been on a show, a cooking show, and they won, and they're like, okay, what does this mean? Or they've done a bunch of things and they've got a James Beard Award, and they're like, okay, I need PR, I want to be on TV, and this is it, and I'm gonna get an agent. I'm like, dude, you just started. Nobody owes you this.
Right.
But then as soon as that happens, as soon as the job happens, as soon as like all of this other thing happens, I think people forget that the responsibility and the onus is on them to go forward.
Right.
And they've put so much on the job that now you're crushing them with the feedback because they're like, no, but I thought I'd made it.
Wow, I never even thought about that perspective. That
Yeah.
I think I'm already there. Like now, and I always joke, like, Tiger Woods is probably the most gifted golfer to ever touch a golf club, and he's always had a swing coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even the greatest golfer on the planet needed someone to tell him, where's my swing off? What am I not seeing? And I just find this huge disconnect. And I'm really fortunate. I can tell you my partner in crime, my chief sales officer, we talk about this often. I said, her and I are so simpatico because I can tell her anything, and she's never questioned my intentions.
Yeah.
Ever. Because she knows my only reason I'm telling her, not that I'm right, but here's my perspective on what I think we need to do to make us better.
Yeah.
And that is somebody that I just know. But guess what? She was an athlete. She played basketball in school. Her thing is like, I like coaching. She's the one that it really, really gravitates towards it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to say, God, how do I replicate that in everybody to know, just trust the intention.
But I really do think there is a such thing top down. I'm not saying that it's your management style, or for whomever, but it's top down. If people see you taking feedback and how that works. Like what are your expectations of this person? Have you set them up for the expectations to be so high that they feel stressed and they're not doing it? Do they think they have to work all the time in order to fulfill this job? Are you having 4 people less than you really need? I mean, it's like, what is the stress? What are the stressors that are happening? And I also think that some part of this could be in the interviewing process.
Agreed.
Ask them, start there. Like, how do you take feedback? And you have to ask it in such a way that it's not a canned answer. Because look, can you say this to me in the recorder? Because when you come to my office, I'm like, child, didn't you just say that you were okay with feedback? Hold on, let me press play. I'm okay with feedback. Hold on, I'm okay with feedback. Hold on, that's you, isn't that you?
Yeah, it's so true. I had a friend that was an Air Force pilot, and my dad was Air Force intelligence for 42 years and was in the Air National Guard, but he was never a pilot. And this friend of ours that was a pilot, I worked with him in a past life here, and the one thing he always told me, he goes, Mike, you know what happens when you're a fighter pilot? After every sortie, after every flight you've done, we all sit in a room and we watch film of everything we just did, and it gets torn apart on every mistake we have. And he says, but we create an environment that the everything is evaluated. Yeah. Everything is critiqued, because he goes, and I guess it's different because it's life or death. We have to be that good. Yeah. But he says if we can carry that into, and I think about the medical field, surgeons, if there's something that goes wrong in a surgery, they have to sit in front of their peers and go step by step so that everybody learns from it. And I think those are such good lessons for us in the business community. Yeah. To say we need to be learning from it, because it goes back to what you just said. It's our journey. As a business, not just a person. It's a person, and as a business, we can go through that journey. I think so many of us miss that.
And it's a two-way street. And I also think, like when I was a caterer, and usually you think as a service business, people have to choose you.
Right.
I'm like, no, I get to choose you too.
Exactly.
It has to be a two-way street, because you can't just choose me like I'm supposed to automatically love your job. But if I don't think it's a right fit, I shouldn't accept your job.
I like that.
Yeah, because you can't just choose me.
Yeah, and we talk about that because I'm a big believer in culture, but not just by words, and it's how we live it. And I've reminded people, sometimes we may have to divorce from a customer.
Yeah, what?
If they are not living our culture.
That's right.
And our culture is not that difficult. Carla, the only thing we say, we will respect each other and we will be kind.
Yes.
Not a high bar. But if we can't do that, 1, you won't be in our company. 2, maybe you shouldn't be in our community.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm happy to say we have a community that people can live to that standard of a culture. But I think too many people, they talk culture, they don't literally execute that.
Yeah.
And that's an important one as a leader, because I know it really starts with me.
Yeah.
But it's me living it, and it's one of my favorite quotes is by Thoreau. What you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say.
Yeah, that's it.
And that is my mentality and filter about the culture, that if I believe in culture and I let people be disrespectful and I let people be unkind, and I think what's really the secret sauce, if everybody understands that that's how I expect we treat each other, I never have to worry about how my team is treating my client.
Yes.
Ever.
Ever.
Because it all starts here.
Yep.
And it's that respect that comes with it, And I just think that some people don't put enough time into that as far as really building the culture, because it takes sweat equity to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and I like with my team, it's a very small, immediate team. There are only 4 of us.
Right.
And I've always said I want us to rise like a box, not a pyramid, with me on top.
Right.
And so I make sure that I understand what their interests are.
Right.
How I can fold their interests into what the brand is doing. And a prime example, my assistant, she's more than an assistant, but she wanted to do an online magazine. She's always wanted to do a magazine. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And we're all involved in it.
Love that.
But it's like her pet project that she wanted to do. And we're like, okay, Let's do it. And then, I have my culinary producer, Arian Duarte, who was on Top Chef with me. She has a catering company. I'm like, all right, Arian, do you want to do dinner parties? I could never do them before until you came. Do you want to do more of that, right? And so it's like asking everybody, what do you want to do? So I'm invested in their company and business the same as I'm invested in mine.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And how inspiring for him. I mean, in that regard, really how inspiring for him. But you've written one cookbook or two?
3.
3. Mm-hmm. How much work goes into writing a cookbook? Because I think people go, oh, they just put recipes in a book. That's why I want to ask the question. How much?
I'm working on one right now.
Are you really?
Yeah, I think that's why I'm stressed. I'm going to talk about that today. My PCP said your adrenals are high and your cortisol. She was like, what? I'm like, what is it? I don't know. Am I stressed? I was like, oh, I'm working on a cookbook. I'm like, I'm working on a baking book, and it's particularly stressful. So it takes a whole year because of different seasons,
right?
And also you want to make sure, or I want to make sure that the recipes work.
Right.
Because it's my ego involved. I mean, I'm telling you, it's my ego. I want people to be, I want to know that they work. I mean, you may not be a good cook, but so I want to be able to tell you it's not the recipe.
Right.
Okay. I like.
If it's baking, I can assure you it's not the recipe if I mess it up.
Look, we've worked on these. So it's tedious. It's not only the recipes and making sure you're writing the recipes, making sure the flow is consistent, and then there's a writer, and then you have the photo shoot, and then so it takes a really long time. There are multiple steps. I mean, down to what paper do you want in the book, like the design of it, like all of those things, which the publisher helps you. But this book in particular with baking, it's the metric and imperial measurement, so weights as well as the cups. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, I want my book to come with a scale because I've done all this work, and I'm like, I'd be darned if you're going to sit there and mess up my recipes with a cup and you don't know how to measure flour. But I mean, that's just me, y'all. That's just me. I'm just saying. But it is.
I love that.
But I love it. At the end of the day, I really love it. Like, I've had a particularly great baking week. I thank you for bringing this up. I'm making bread, and I'm not really a bread maker. So I feel like my audience, I'm bringing them on this journey with me. And that's what's in my head. My intention is to learn through this process like they're going to learn when they get my book.
My God. And there goes your heart and soul back into the food and kind of where we started. You could tell you get so passionate when you talk about it. So of your 3 that are out, which one's your favorite?
Soul food.
Yeah, I somehow knew just reading that and funny, that's the one that just reading about it stood out to me. So, but why?
So when I wanted to do that book, at first I wanted to do a baking book, and they were like, no. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to do a book on soul food. And I was told, no, you can't. You shouldn't do soul food because your base is so much bigger. I'm like, but wait, would you say that to an Italian person, French, Greek, that they shouldn't do their book? I'm like, and so I'm a Taurus, so I doubled down on it. You told me no, we don't do this book, right? And everything about it came together. And so I went on this journey to look at soul food. So I went through 7 different states. Even though I'm from Tennessee, we were in South Carolina, North Carolina. We were in Virginia. We were in Kentucky. So we went to all these different places, Alabama. And I was talking to people about soul food because when you grow up in it, you don't realize like other perspectives.
Right.
Because it just is. So it was looking at soul food through that perspective and talking to different chefs. And then we had this amazing journey, and we get to Nashville and we're getting ready. And it was just for me to download all the people I had spoken to and just to use this kitchen. But the photographer was taking pictures along the way. And he was getting ready to leave, Gabriele Stabile. And we were like, dude, this kitchen's amazing. Do you want to stay? And everything about this book flowed. He stayed. I had no recipes. I was going to the farmer's market. I would bring food back. I would make something. We would take a picture, and I wrote the recipe later.
Oh, wow.
I've never done that, ever. So all of the summer recipes were like that. And I think I just felt so connected to the book and the stories. It wasn't overly polished. It wasn't publishers were saying, oh, it just looks like photojournalism. I don't know, it's not clean. I'm like, exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't look overworked. It's not precious, you know.
And how authentic, because to me, soul food isn't overly polished. It is about how you feel when you eat that kind of food. What an amazing journey. We could talk for a lot longer. I mean, I am so enjoying this, but you're going to have to go on stage shortly. And I just want to thank you for taking the time, blessing us with the conversation. And I can't wait to hear you in there, because I know I'm going to learn so much more.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Meeting Room, presented by Associated Luxury Hotels International. ALHI is a global sales and marketing organization representing the finest luxury hotels, cruise lines, and destination management companies. For the latest industry news and to see ALHI's robust portfolio, follow us on LinkedIn and check out our website at ALHI.com. To learn more about Carla, visit her website at carlahall.com. This episode is sponsored by Caribe Royale Orlando, Color Outside the Lines, and discover a new standard at Caribe Royale Orlando. Break the mold on traditional Orlando meetings and conventions. At Caribe Royale Orlando, innovation is only the beginning. With an incomparable resort experience, exceptional indoor and outdoor venues, and luxurious all-suite accommodations. Designed for the disruptors and rule benders among us, Caribe Royale Orlando is a groundbreaking AAA 4-diamond destination where inspiration reigns and a new standard is set.